I think what really got me a good start in the church, and it's actually going to make her roll over in her not likely grave, but in her bed with distraught, if she knew. I was going to say this, but Vina from Baptist Bible was so good, so refreshing, so wonderful. One of my first tastes of hard preaching. Was that hard preaching? It was kind of like hard preaching. Oh, it's so good. So good. Just live the Jesus stuff. Just read what it says and do what he says. And then there's a lot of the controversial areas. Those are the more minor areas, though. Like it says sometime in Romans is one obscure thing that indicates this. And it's like, okay, that's an obscure one, though. Tackle something straightforward like love your enemies. Once you get all those down, then maybe tackle some of the obscure ones, but just focus on that one first. You know, and how do you show love to your enemies? Well, sometimes love looks like chastisement, too. Love doesn't always just, like, what does C.S. Lewis say? That God isn't just a benevolent old grandfather that wants to make sure everyone's having a good time or whatever. It's also about growth and progression. I don't know what the Christians believe, but this is one place that we differ. Mormons, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, us people, you know, so we're not being deceptive, and I'm going to tell you who we are, like we're both. That's our new name. You know, why wouldn't we tell them our new name? Are we trying to deceive? I think there's somebody named the deceiver. We're trying not to be like that, are we? We wouldn't want to be deceiving, are we? But anyway, we believe in eternal progression. Christians believe in eternal stagnation, I believe. So when they say we're not Christian, that's why. It's because we believe in a different kind of thing. Like, that's a completely different thing. When they say the word Christian, it's different than when we say it. And I don't know why we act baffled. Like, oh, why do they think we're not Christian? I think Jesus Christ is literally in our name. It's like, it's because our doctrine is fundamentally different. Duh. Stop trying to trick people to church. Just tell them the straight thing. Like, eternal progression makes way more sense than eternal stagnation. It makes way more logical sense. If you're going to be in heaven, what are you doing? You're just sitting there? Like, that'd be so boring. Can you imagine just sitting in your apartment and that's it? You're just there because, like, you're there forever. And you, like, it's going to get boring over time. If you're just doing nothing, you're just sitting, like, oh my goodness. That's going to be the eternal ridiculousness of boredom. Once you've done everything in eternity, like, what's left to do? It's eternal. It's progression. It's literally this that we're doing. It's likely just this that we're doing. It's just this. What's heaven? Just this. Just this that we're doing. This thing that we're thinking. Think. This thing that we're thinking. And it just goes on. And we got to be a part of it right now. Consciousness after death. Do we retain individuality or consciousness after death? I believe we retain consciousness. I believe consciousness is retained after death. I don't know if it's individual or if it's like, oh, we're just all in heaven. We're all in heaven. We're all one, like one being or something. Some kind of like the Everything is Jake episode in Adventure Time. Just, we could just be all one thing, or like it would be lonely if we were just one being floating around in eternity just alone. I don't know. So it'd be lonely. But there could be a way that makes sense that we do retain our individuality or something. Like it could be something. You don't know. That's the biggest criticism of Christianity is you don't know. You don't know. Okay, well, neither do you. It's just as likely are things. It holds equal weight, right? So many things that hold equal weight. You don't know. There's likely something, though. There's likely something. It's just based on the nature of the way stuff works. If it's based in stuff, like science believes, consciousness is based in some kind of brain thing. Like it has to do with the stuff. Well, then it's an integral, inherent part of the stuff in some way. I would say not just connected to the brain, but connected to the stuff itself. And it just changes form right along with the stuff. And then you're going to go and flush your blood down the drain and pump your body full of chemicals. What if you're inherently tied to your stuff, your body? Wouldn't you rather, like, even if you're cremated, at least you're going back to like mix in again and do some more fun stuff. If you're just kind of like there, your blood just washed down the drain willy-nilly, you're just like mixing it in that weird way. I don't know. I want to be just naturally buried. I don't want my blood out. I don't want the chemicals. I don't want the fragrances. I don't want any of that. Just put me in the ground, wrap me in a blanket, put me in the ground, put me in a basket, whatever the natural cemetery allows. Do a tree or something, plant a tree over me. And I'll my body spread back out into the universe, because I don't know what's going to happen. But if it's tied to the stuff in some way, that seems like a pretty good thing, because ashes to ashes, dust to dust, that's where our bodies go anyway. I'm literally made of the dust of the earth. All the dust makes the plants. The plants get and build their bodies from the dust, the literal stuff in the ground, the dirt, the decomposing, rotting other ones, the sunlight. We're made of sun, right? So the plants feed the animals and they eat the plants, and they don't feel bad about cutting off that organism's life. And that organism lived and enjoyed the sun for its life, and then it got cut down, right? And then the cow ate that, and then it lived its life, and then it got cut down, and then we ate the cow. And then we lived our life, and then we got cut down. And the bacteria ate us, and then something else ate the bacteria, and then it like goes around and around. We go back to the dirt that we came from. We literally came from the dirt. Cycle. It's an eating and death cycle. It's not news. I'm not the first one to come up with it. I'm probably not. I'm like the 99 billionth one to come up with it. It's not. I know it's not news. But it is news. It's hard to remember where we come from when we get our food from the grocery store. And McDonald's is so easy. And it's hard to remember to tell kids what's news and what's not. To the kids growing up who just live at McDonald's, it's like they have no idea what real life is like. If you grew up watching TV and going to McDonald's a lot, you have a really different idea about how reality is. Like, if the tenuous threads of society break or the house of cards collapses, I don't know. We need to be thinking about other things, not just being satisfied or whatever. Get some skills, something that's usable, something that's cool to do, understand how life works in some way. Like, aim for adventure time. Like, should our goal for life be like adventure time? That's kind of what I'm thinking. Modeling like that, like aim for the good stuff, aim for what's going to improve things generally. Creative. And creative destruction is still destruction. Like there's no loopholes, you can't get around it. If your whole thing is about just tearing everybody else down around you, or like you're going to create by being part of the destruction of this like thing, it's like kind of, I mean, I think you should err on the side of creation though. Like if you're going to do some destruction, I think like having some creation makes sense. You know. And I don't know, we should be really careful in what we destroy, because we never know what God's using for good, right? So anyway, so I think I had a little protection there, because I started out in Baptist Bible, and I just had more of a foundation in Jesus, in the Jesus stuff. So when Christians say that Mormons aren't Christian, it's also because Mormons don't have, I would say, as much of a foundation in the actual Jesus, what Jesus said, Jesus stuff. Mormons have a decent understanding, but Mormons are doing a lot more branchy stuff. Like before they're perfecting the Jesus stuff, Mormons are trying to perfect the visiting teaching and the temple attendance. And I think the Christians a lot of times are like, well, like, why would you be focusing on stuff that's not even in the Bible like before you've even done the Bible stuff? And I don't know if Christians are asking that, but I'm asking that. I'm not asking that in a derogatory way. I'm asking that in a Christian, curious way. Just like, you know, Jesus says a lot of stuff on the Sermon on the Mount. I think we should maybe perfect that stuff before we perfect doing things that aren't even in the Bible. Like building temples, that could be something. But there's other things we're doing that's definitely even like against the Bible. Like investing with usury. And I know it's not popular, but I'm pretty sure it says in the Bible about usury. I learned this from the Baptist stuff. Usury. It says in the Bible, if someone wants to borrow money from you, just loan him the money. Why do you want to be so stingy? Why do you want to be so greedy? It's your friend. It's your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. If your neighbor's a little untrustworthy and you're kind of worried about it, take his coat as collateral or something. If it gets to be the end of the day and he's cold, just give him his coat back. I don't know. It's just, I think that's in the Bible. It'd be interesting to find it. I think I heard a thing on it. I think I read it, but I could be mistaken. And it goes on too. I don't remember how it goes, but basically the thing is, when you loan money, just loan money because they're your brother. They're asking because they need the money. Like, if you don't want to loan the money, I think it says then just don't loan the money. I can't remember. There's like a thing. It's like, do it or don't, but like, don't do the usury. Don't do the thing, whatever you want to call it, investments or whatever. Don't do the thing where you loan money and then get something in return for the loan because of the risk or whatever. For any reason, whatever the reason is, but the loaning the money and getting money for just loaning money, that's wicked. That's against the Bible. And you might not get as much money, but then like the whole system overall, it's just like our dollar has to be backed by something. And everyone's like, oh, it used to be backed by gold and that was important. I think what's gold backed by, like what things are backed by are work. You could put work into gold and do something with it, right? The money, the token economy is backed by work, acts. If people are working, they're producing things or whatever, there's more goods and services, there's more food because people are working harder on their land, there's more, whatever it is, there's more because people are working harder, they have more money. The money is the work. You trade the money for things that people put work into, like collecting eggs or whatever it is. The grain that the machine worked to mill. It makes sense that we work together. We can do a lot more. If we just work together with technology is good. It helps us do more, easier. But we need to love our brother. We need to love our enemy. We need to love our neighbor as ourselves. So we'll work better, more efficient, and more pleasant for everyone. We could do a lot more pleasant thing. Anyway, I think I did better in the church. When I joined the church, I assumed everybody knew about the Jesus stuff. I assumed we were doing the branchy stuff because we were all on board with the Jesus stuff. The Jesus stuff already accomplished. This is the Church of Jesus Christ. This is not the church of just random Baptist with 25 people in the congregation or whatever. This is the church. This is a huge church. This church converts everyone. This church has sons of missionaries. I felt the Spirit. It's like, oh, this is the place of God. Like, these people already understand it. And these people talk about this stuff a lot. You know, it's interesting though, because people really don't understand like the basic Jesus stuff. Like, love your enemies seems to elude pretty much everyone. The usury thing eludes everyone. It's just like, huh. Well, I think that Joseph Smith was a prophet. I think Joseph Smith had a real lived experience, had a real understanding and experience of the time. I think it was overall net positive experience on humanity. The church does a lot of good stuff. Everyone likes the church. They made the desert bloom like a rose. It was a desert. I think Jim Bridger, one of the mountain men, said that Utah freezes all year round, that it snows in July. He might have been talking about the mountains. He was a mountain man. Does that mean he stayed in the literal mountain, or did he come down in the summer and spring? It would have been hot in the valley. Was it sagebrush and stuff? I think it probably was. I think it looked like Cedar Valley. I think it was like just miserable and sagebrush and yeah, ugh, stay in the mountains. But then yeah, it does snow in the mountains year round. So anyway, it's a pretty harsh climate, real deserty and hot and miserable down in the valley. Ugh. A lot of dry, dusty horses, my goodness. It's freezing cold mountains. Mountain. You know you come from the mountain because it's MOUN apostrophe N, mountain. It's the Utah pronunciation. Everyone's like, oh, you're just from Utah. It's Utah. But I mean, I have never heard that outside of Utah. In Utah, I get criticized for talking like a Utah 100% more of the time than outside of Utah, talking like a Utah. Mountain. It's just how it's says. It's just how it is. It's just how it's pronounced. Just deal with it. You know what I'm talking about. It's that big thing over there, the big jaggedy rock mountain. Anyway, everyone says it. No, I don't want to be accused of coming from a foreign country all the time. Mountain. Going to the mountains. Anyway. The mountains are cold. The valley is hot. One of the stories is the women cried when they came over the valley, over the mountain. They came over and they saw it. Back then they were still saying mountain because they were from the east. Look, dear, the mountains. We will raise our children here. This dry, desolate wasteland. Like, oh my gosh. The story is that the women cried. Brigham Young said this is the place and the women cried. And the thing is, maybe the church, like, scrubbed that clean from history. They didn't cry, they were faithful. But I think that the women cried was a testimony of their humanity, their understanding. When I moved more to the east, where it rains, in Kentucky, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the Garden of Eden. Like, this kind of climate. It's like so nice. It's cool. It's just like all the seasons. Like, it's nice. I don't know. Things grow and live. It's not just like dying. Like, you're not battling death. There's a whole different culture when you're battling death out in the desert. Those old Mormons are hard, tough as nails. Old Mormons. They're scrappy and rough. Anyway. Ugh, they just make do. You know, there's a lot of downwinders too in Utah. It's a whole different thing. That which you do to the least of these my brethren. I knew a downwinder. He was definitely one of the least of these my brethren. When you think of the least of these and you think the traditional least of these my brethren, this guy was all alone. No family. He'd been unjustly sent to prison at some point. He was a downwinder, had lung disease. At the end, the neighbor pounded on his lungs every single day to loosen his phlegm up and stuff for him. He got like a microphone thing to talk through because he could hardly talk because he could hardly breathe. So it's coming out like a whisper, like a rasp. He could talk to him like a rasp. Just a lonely old man. That which ye do to the least of these my brethren, you do to me also. And did anyone have time for this man? Yeah, like, I don't know. We all hung out. I'm going to say like, oh, I had time for him. But I did. I made time. I liked him. I loved him. He was my friend. And we inherited some stuff. His legacy lives on in my kids. Some of his things he loved, and the things he treasured, and the things he was mildly obsessed with. I got some. Just a couple of things my kids think are cool. Anyway, he wasn't a Mormon either. I think he had a grudge against the Mormons. I think it was something about that. Why he went to prison, but I'm not sure. It was something else. It was something to do with his wife. the desert. I mean, people are different everywhere. But yeah, the women cried when they got to Utah. They saw it. It's like, oh my gosh. But now look at it. It's blooming like a rose. Everyone wants to live there. It's a nice place. It's inexpensive and wholesome. Everyone's nice. It's safe. You can walk around at night. I don't know if you can walk around at night anymore. A lot of outsiders moving in, and that sounds really cliquish, like, oh, we just want to keep it as it is. But like, it's just too much. It's a flood of outsiders. And so then the Utah culture, what made it so safe? It's like, oh, it's not as safe anymore. Oh, yeah. Well, what made it safe was that cliquish nature, that isolated kind of stuff. And yeah, there's some weird stuff bred in isolation. We should be a little inclusive, right? Diversity is good and stuff. But like, the isolation did make it good. Like, but when I'm saying then the church, like the fruits, there are some good fruits from the church. The church did do some good stuff. So you can't say it's all bad, because it's logically a good place to go. People want to go there. People still want to go there, even though it's like not as good as it used to be. It's like more expensive than ever. It's still a good place to go. Like, people still want to be there quite a lot. So I don't know. Like, you can make a case for the church just because Utah is a nice place to be. And the reason Utah is a nice place to be is because it was so isolated and it was predominantly Mormon. Like, that's what everyone complains about anyway. Oh, it's everything's so Mormon. It's all the church. It's all the church, church, church. Okay, yeah, well, that's why it's good. But also, the church isn't 100%. And the church isn't God. Like, we need to stop equating the church with God. That's just not what God wants. It's not what Jesus said to do. It's nowhere in the Bible. Should we ever do that? It's not a thing.